having this opportunity to have constant conversations with fear, I think is something that's very unique that climbing can give you, and especially the style of climbing that I do. We're very comfortable these days, and we're hardwired to seek comfort because it feels safe and secure. And I think that that can be too dangerous if you get too used to that. And there is something to learning how to be comfortable with discomfort in uncomfortable spaces. And I think that rock climbing has really given me that superpower.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Fuel. I'm your host, Erin Martin, and today we sit down with an elite rock climber and founder of Athena Rock Climbing, Kelly Turner. In today's episode, we dive into her journey of leading an all-female team on a 42-day expedition in the Arctic to establish one of the hardest climbing routes in the world. Also, how she handles mental and physical demands of such an elite sport, and how she sits with both fear and grief after experiencing the loss of her mother a few years ago, and most recently, 2 miscarriages. I found so much inspiration from Kelly's mental strength and self-awareness, and I'm excited for you to dive into her story as your fuel for today. There's been a lot of tears by me and a lot of guests on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an ectopic pregnancy in December, and they removed an ovary fallopian tube, and it was almost a liter of blood lost in that process, emergency surgery, and then just recently another miscarriage. I do believe that, like, millions of women deal with this, and we don't talk about it, and I understand that it's really hard to talk about it, so I respect any woman's decision to not speak on it, but I also can't help but feel like we don't talk about it because we don't know how to talk about it. So
I've gone through 2 miscarriages, so I know the gut-wrenching feeling of that experience, but also to have gone through such a crazy surgery and physically been battling throughout the emotional battle too, I can imagine is so intense.
it's the current one, that's for sure.
Yeah, because it can be I think people are always uncomfortable or struggle with figuring out how to support it or what to say that's right and not knowing what's right, when there doesn't have to always be a silver bullet, a perfect answer, like, it's messy, it's grief, you just want support, but I think pretending that it didn't happen or just trying to bury it and not have people exposed to reality doesn't help, like you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, and grief, I understand it. It is so isolating for everyone because it is so unique for everyone and it's so emotionally charged that it can be very isolating. And a miscarriage just feels especially so because it's this sort of silent grief. You can't really see it. If you look at me physically, I look fine right now. And I was just working this past month. I only had 2 days off in the past month. So I was working throughout it. Um, and I did just come home for the most physically intense parts of that. And I'm really happy that I did. But the fact that even I could go to work with such a physical job and appear just fine, I was like, "This is not okay that women are out there just like, okay, I guess I'll go back to work now." Um,
Yeah, and for you, did you wanna go back to almost, keep your mind off it? Like, what was your driver to go back and continue, like, just get back in the grind? Or what was it really for you?
well, I do believe in keeping my commitments, and then I
Mm.
think I probably do have this hyperachiever in me, so there is that I'm like, I will continue to perform, so it's a pressure that I put on myself. Um, and then also guiding, is it's not stable financially, and it's taken
Mm.
me a long time to build it into something that is financially stable and secure, and one of the ways that I've done that is by creating these long-term mentorship programs, which gives me sort of long-term income that I can count on, and it also gives my students something real. I taught so many 1 to 3 day climbing courses, and I was just like, it takes more than 3 days to learn how to rock climb. And so I crafted these mentorship programs to give more long-term instruction to folks, and I had those on the calendar, and I don't at this point, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. It was like, well, I didn't have to question whether or not I was gonna have income in 7 months, like a stable cash flow in 7 months, but it also meant I had work where I had to show up for people, and the mentorship program is extreme. It's one-on-one work, so it's not just like I don't know, it's like I'm letting somebody down personally that I've connected with. So there was that. I was like, "Oh, this person needs to get out and they're supposed to learn how to big wall climb today, or they're supposed to learn how to lead climb or this technical skill," and I didn't wanna let them down, sort of. So I think that's very
Yeah.
a roundabout way of saying I'm used to putting other people's needs above my own, and I think that's true for a lot of women, that it just sort of felt natural. I was like, "Well, other people need me, so I will be there." And
Yeah.
it is part of my learning now to unlearn that and to learn how to put myself first, and that is very uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially when, like you said, there's a moment where you realize I am completely not okay right now.
I'm
Like
not
this is
okay.
actually not good. Like we push ourselves in these situations and then it takes a moment like that to realize, "Oh, I need to not do that like this is extreme. This is like
Yeah,
not good."
exactly. Yeah, there was when I found out about the miscarriage and I was out in the field, I was working, I had a decision. I was like, "Okay, my body is gonna start processing this physically very soon. Should I go home?" And I spent a few days working partially to keep my mind off of it, but also it's I get to work outside and I'm active, and I was like, both of those things are extremely good for your mental health, and
Yeah.
it's part of what I do for a living, and so instead of cursing it in this moment, I can sort of embrace it and be like, it's gonna get me out in the sun, it's gonna get me moving, and I have built a career where I'm working with women, so I did lean into just telling them what I was going through. As much as I'm not somebody that likes to accept help, I don't do that very easily, so I was sort of like, "I don't want pity, I don't want help," but I had to sort of, like, silence that part of myself and be like, "This is what my body is dealing with, and I am here for women, I've built my career on that, so this is an opportunity to sort of, like, to live what I preach and to just walk the talk and be like, this is what my body's dealing with today," and to work with people who fully understand it. I had multiple women be like, "Yeah, I had a miscarriage at 11 weeks," or "I had a miscarriage at this point in time," and I was just like, "I'm not alone in this."
Yeah, which is huge. And even that outdoor piece that brings to mind for me, I know for my first miscarriage, it happened when my husband and I were actually doing a trip away together. But we were on Orcas Island in the Pacific Northwest, which is just some of the most beautiful areas of the country. And we're luckily staying in this like gorgeous hotel, just like overlooking all the all the water and just I remember just that crazy amount of grief, but also almost like gratitude for it having happened there. And at the time we had, I think 2-year-old little girls, and she was with the grandparents. So also just being grateful that it was in a spot where we could process it together,
Mhm.
like you were with women in such a beautiful outdoor area that just really centered me and helped a lot. So I think there is such a power in nature of being able to reconnect you to like, you can have those 2 opposing things. You can see beauty and feel grief at the same time when you are outside and surrounded by the things that matter.
Yes, fully, absolutely, and the reality is the world does keep going, right? And when you're in nature and you're looking at that, that's very obvious to you. You're like, well, the sun is still rising, the sun is still setting, the orcas are still out there, whatever's happening. Like the reality, it's not just a human imposed thing that life keeps going. It's just the way that it is, and we don't get to know why. So it can be good to just this whole thing has been a lesson in letting go of what I can't control, right? And I think that's honestly the past few years of my life that has been a big lesson from what I do in the outdoors. I've just connected climbing so much to these greater life circumstances that we have no control over. I lost my mother a few years ago and had to navigate her health issues before she took her last breath. And really prior to that, I thought rock climbing was just almost this selfish activity of like, what is it doing for the greater good? It's not fighting the climate crisis. It's not curing cancer, so what is the purpose of it? And in navigating grief in various forms now for the past few years, I've really seen how giving outdoor activities, and for me specifically, it's all I can speak on, how giving rock climbing is for handling so many of life's unknowns.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, I've been reading, I don't know if you've heard of the book Good Energy.
Mm.
I audiobook that one by Casey Means, and it's talking about what you need to do from a health and mental perspective for to have basically good energy. And she really harps on sun and being outside and how much that does for you in terms of like wear it with a badge of honor. Literally every single day, try to be outside as much as you can for you, your kids, like stack it up, especially people like me where we work inside or work from home and we're in an office, being able to be outside or spend the weekends in the mountains or do things, just maximize time outside for your health and being able to process things. So I think that is one thing where you guys are giving that to others, like an ability to have a skill to live outside or be a stronger climber. The more that we can just get outside and find passions outside instead of on screens and inside is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like the older I get, the more I understand old people sitting outside on their porch, just like watching the world go by. I'm like, yeah, I need more of that in my day. I need to just sit outside even if I'm not doing anything. So being outside and then for me specifically, having this opportunity to have constant conversations with fear, I think is something that's very unique that climbing can give you, and especially the style of climbing that I do. We're very comfortable these days, and we're hardwired to seek comfort because it feels safe and secure. And I think that that can be too dangerous if you get too used to that. And there is something to learning how to be comfortable with discomfort in uncomfortable spaces. And I think that rock climbing has really given me that superpower. And I
Yeah, I
encourage
love
women
that.
to go out and to be scared and to be scared together. That's part of what I do is I'm like, you don't have to do it alone. We're all scared. And that's like the hardest thing for me to tell my mentees and my students is they're like, well, does it ever feel easier? And I'm like, oh, you're always going to feel afraid up there, but it's going to become more normal. You're going to get used to that at least.
And so what have you learned has helped push through some of that fear? What do you mentally and physically do to be able to work through it and approach it, and how do you coach your students?
For Fortunately, climbing is a very slow activity, like when compared to mountain biking or skiing. But climbing happens very slowly. It's why we don't watch it on TV. It's not very interesting as a spectator sport. So I think the first answer to that is sitting with it. And in climbing, you certainly have time to sit with it and to just
Mm.
observe it is number one. And in that, for me, there's a grounding that I have to then do afterwards that comes through breath work, and then after this sort of grounding of, like, stopping to breathe, just assessing what's around me and deciding what's in my control and what's outside of my control. And that allows me to evaluate, like, is this fear emotional, or is there something in my environment that is rightfully causing me to be afraid, and do I need to respond to that now? So I have this very sort of pragmatic approach to it where I'm like, let me look at the technical systems, the ropes, the anchors, all of that, the environment I'm in, and let me see if there's any way that I can make that situation safer. Or does it make sense? Am I in hazardous terrain? Am I absolutely in a position that, yeah, I should be feeling fear right now? And those moments are a little bit harder. So, like, for an audience that doesn't know rock climbing, if you are the one putting up the rope, you place a piece of protection and you climb above that protection. And however far above that piece of gear that you climb equals the distance that you're going to take a fall. So, you can take massive falls in rock climbing. And we call that being run out. So there's sometimes when you're in terrain that doesn't have a lot of safety protection and it falls on your physical capability and your mental capability to be able to do that. And so that comes from, for me, it comes from practice. And breathing and being in terrain prior to that, and just knowing I I am capable of making these moves without the protection, and right now the only barrier is my mind. And even if I can't get that mental barrier to go away, if I just recognize that, then I'm physically capable and the only thing holding me back is my mind, it allows me to take one step further. And then also being able to gauge, like, today is not the day. I can't take a step. I do need to bail. That's what we would say. I need to rappel down. I need to get out of here, and I need to listen to that intuition.
That's so good. And yeah, that sitting with the fear and sitting with the emotion, I think is another thing that our modern day just has eradicated. We're looking at a phone, we're looking at a screen, we're off to the next thing, we're doing that. We're not like sitting on the porch or processing emotions like we need to or should be. So I think there is a beauty with sitting with the emotion like you were talking about, whether it's grief or fear on a mountain, to be
Yeah,
able to get through that, and then you build trust. "Oh, I know how to work through something," and I think I even heard an emotion will last 45 seconds or a minute, and so if you can sit with it and work through it instead of freak out during it and make it worse, you can get through it. So, you can't avoid it, you just need to work through it.
absolutely. Yeah, and one of my mantras, not so much in climbing, but, like, recently in navigating all of these health issues, has been pain is temporary. So I've experienced tremendous pain recently. And when you're in it, you're just like, "This is my new forever. This is gonna last forever." And when you're in that
Yeah.
mindset, it's not gonna help you. So just reminding myself, this too shall pass, like, this is a temporary feeling. It's not gonna be here forever, has been really helpful. And that is also a lesson from the outdoors. Like, the worst part of rock climbing to me is hiking uphill with a heavy bag. I hate it. It's the worst. Just getting to the climb or getting down from the climb, they're the worst. And if you're in the midst of carrying, like, a 60 to 80-pound bag and you're hiking uphill and you're just like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna be in this forever," then you're gonna slow down to a halt or bail, turn around. So just being like, "This will end. I don't know when it's gonna end, but it will end. That much I know." Kinda like we were saying before, like, the world keeps spinning. There is going to be a new day, whether or not we like it. So it's up to me if I mentally want to be on this hill or sit in this pain for multiple days, or if I want to just push through and get to the other side of that.
Yeah, which is great perspective. I think that's the piece that has helped me a ton too when I've worked through things, is being able to have that perspective and zoom out and see, yes, this is not going to last forever. There's other millions of other women who have gone through this like I have. And it gives you kind of that levity or breath of fresh air that sometimes just, yeah, releases a little bit of that pressure that the grief has in whatever you're dealing with. Even, like chronic diseases or health issues, you feel like, just like you said, it's going to be your new forever. And it doesn't have to be. If you mentally succumb to it, then you can kind of rat hole, and like, you need to be strong for yourself and be your own advocate. And you're the only one who's going to really lift you out of a situation. So you got to mentally just keep that perspective to have you work through it.
Yeah. And trying to lean into what is this experience trying to give me? Like,
Mm.
every single thing in life can be an opportunity, can be a lesson, and it can be a gift with the right mindset of just being like, well, maybe this was meant for me, maybe it's not meant for me, but I have it. And there are lessons that I can take from it if I shift my perspective just a little bit and I go, why is this, why am I experiencing this in this way? Not so much like, why is this happening to me, but what lessons am I meant to gain from this experience?
Oh, I love that. And I'm curious too then, like right now, so much physically, mentally, and emotionally is happening to you. So what else are you doing to keep your body healthy? I know just physically going through a pregnancy is obviously intense, but even a miscarriage, like there's so much going on with your body after that. And then a surgery like you've had. So is there anything else you're doing on the physical front or anything else just to try to heal and work through it?
Really, I'm trying to lean into nutrition and rest. Those 2 things seem to be very key for me. So just focusing on the calories that I'm getting, on trying to get more calories and then trying to get the right type of calories, like specifically boosting my iron right now. That's a tremendous amount of blood loss in both of those instances. Um, and just trying to give my body the rest that it needs. So getting, if I need to lay down and sleep, then laying down to sleep without feeling guilty about it and allowing my body to recover. And one of the gifts, I even though I was an athlete, I have always, I don't want to say like struggled with body image, but I haven't connected with my body that much, which is like for somebody who's in their body so much can be, it sounds silly, but when you're climbing, you're very bundled up. Like it's almost like I never ever see my body. So I'm anytime I do see it, I'm like, "Oh, wow, I didn't know that was there." Like, I had a sense that my body was there, but I have
It's
no
under
idea
a puffy
what it
coat.
looks like. Like, if I'm in a bikini, I'm like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know that's what I was working with there." So connecting with my body in that way has been a new process for me, and in recovery I've just learned how strong our bodies really are. So having this constant feeling when I'm an athlete of like, I need to get stronger, I need to get faster, I need to lift more, all of these things. Once you have once you have all of your physical strength stripped away from you, I think you realize, or I realize, like how strong I really was. So like after my surgery, for instance, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even roll over without my husband rolling me over or sitting me up or bringing me to the bathroom, those sorts of things. And I was like, wow, I can walk. Like, I was pretty damn strong, even though I was constantly beating myself up and telling myself that I needed to be fitter, stronger, faster.
Yeah, and blood loss and an iron deficiency is no joke either. I just went through like a huge bout of having low iron stores, so low ferritin without um without anemia. So I was still iron deficient, even though my iron levels were high. And that is just the craziest energy suck and will mess with your mind, like brain fog. Like you're just completely not functional and if you're in an iron deficient state. And similarly, when that happened to me, like it was like, whoa, I can't function. I am not myself. And it was just this wild reality of so much appreciation for what I had before. And I can't believe I was so worried about this stupid little thing over here. Like,
Yeah.
and it's sad that sometimes we need that perspective. It's like, how do we get that perspective without having such a low experience that forces us to have it? But really, that's, hitting a low like that where we need someone's help to roll over just really opens your aperture of reality.
Yeah. And not just how do we get that experience, but for me, like to some degree, I can accept that. It's like you don't know what you don't know. But the bigger question for me is always how do we hold on to that? Like, why does the potency of these lessons dissipate
Mm,
over time so
yeah.
easily? And like, why do I have to keep relearning how important it is to be grateful for what I have, to stay present? Like, how come it's so easy for those lessons to slip away? And I don't have the answer to that, but it's just fascinating to me when I look at it. I'm like, wow, it is a constant practice of staying present and staying grateful.
Yeah, and that's why I also just love hearing so many different women's stories because I think that's one way that you can always remind yourself to be grateful of what you have. And it kind of reminds me of stoicism. And I think just that practice of always almost reminding yourself that could be your last day,
Yeah.
above dirt, like tomorrow is not promised. So I think there's a reason a lot of, traditional practices have really put your mortality at the front to be able to remind you every day that you should be grateful because yeah, tomorrow isn't promised.
I call it the gift of death, like, not to be so blunt about it or dark about it, but just to shift that mindset a little bit of like this. I can now live my life because I've seen death and I've experienced it and gone through it. And there is such a gift in that. I will never take my loved ones for granted or my body for granted, those sorts of things. Like, I just know how important it just put everything in perspective really quickly for me, being like, maybe the social following doesn't matter, maybe that's not what's important. Maybe my connections with my loved ones is where I should be putting my energy.
Yes, and I would think that rock climbing would provide a ton of those experiences too, just again with the fear factor that we were talking about. And I mean, you've done some massive climbs when I was looking at some of the stuff you've done. So I don't know if there's one expedition, route that you guys did that comes to mind as one of those that really pushed the needle for you and brought you to, oh, this is like we're in danger territory here.
Yeah, absolutely. The expedition to the Arctic that I went on about a year ago was definitely a dream come true and the trip of a lifetime, and it embodied all of those things of, like, being outdoors and having literally my childhood dreams come true, but then also being surrounded with a constant state of fear and unknowns. But that trip was a big journey. It was a 42-day expedition to Baffin Island, which is in the Canadian Arctic. It's basically in Greenland. So for people that live in Canada, it would be an extremely remote place to go to still. It would feel like they were leaving their country. And we spent 29 consecutive days in the wilderness and went on this multi-sport expedition where we made a giant loop that started out with skiing over sea ice for about 7 days, 186 kilometers, getting to a base camp at the base of a unclimbed cliff, mountain, and we then established a new route on this mountain that was Our climb was about 1,800 feet. It's my brain goes between meters, the metric system, and feet because we were in Canada. So it's 600 meters, about 1,800 feet. And that we spent one night on the wall. So we slept up on the wall in the process of doing that. And then shuttled gear over a mountain pass and got to a freshwater lake that was frozen and skied over the freshwater lake to then access a river, which we then floated on the river in pack rafts that brought us back to land where we could then backpack back into the town where we started. So big multi-sport expedition in one of the most remote places I've ever been in my life with a team of all women, femnems. So that was a, a wild experience. That's the trip in a nutshell. But there were, of course, a million little adventures along the way.
Yeah, what was some of the hairiest parts of it?
I would say one of the wildest things, honestly, was just traveling with shotguns. I've never been
Mm.
on a trip where I had to travel with firearms, and it was for polar bears, which we fortunately didn't have any polar bear interactions. We did see tracks, and I'm sure they were there, but because the sea ice was so solid, it wasn't melting yet, they weren't forced to land, so fortunately, we didn't have to see any of them, but that just it's weird that I got used to sleeping right next to a shotgun. That was unusual.
Could you sleep? Like, do you have problems sleeping? I feel like I would have a problem sleeping.
We the weirdest part about sleeping was that there was 24 hours of daylight because you're so
Mm,
far
yeah.
north. So it was this sort of weird fever dream, and I thought that that would be easier because I always brag about sleeping being one of my superpowers. I'm a great sleeper, but that was weird, was falling asleep while the sun was still up and never knowing where, like, north, east, south, or west was because of that. It just the sun did move, or the earth moved and the sun was in different spots around us, but I just never knew where north was. I was like, "What is happening?"
Yeah, your biological clock just so thrown off.
Yes, absolutely. But the skiing over the sea ice was really amazing, so I would relate it to cross country skiing. That's basically what we were doing. We were trekking over mostly flat terrain, and the sea ice was a really new experience for me, just reading this new ever-changing medium that would go from snow at some parts to then this turquoise stuff to then water that was darker, and there would be cracks in the sea ice, so open leads in the ice that you would then have to cross, and those cracks would be just dark because they just led to the ocean below, and that was always pretty horrifying having to cross these cracks in the ice, and we got very lucky with that. We could usually find a narrow enough spot to get across, but that was always horrifying, and I was like, "This is when the polar bears are gonna pop out, I just know it. They're everywhere."
And so was that your first time doing it then too? I mean, this seemed like a multi-sport and you've got tons of experience in the climbing realm. Were all those other pieces just new to you and you did research and were like, let's get after it?
Pretty much, yeah. So I was invited kind of last minute on this expedition as the climbing expert. They needed one more big wall climber, which big wall climbing just means that the climbs are so big you sleep on them. So they involve a lot of other technical skills. So that's how they found me, is they were like, we want one more person that can do that. But the skiing and the pack rafting, I've done a handful of days out on the river or cross country skiing, but nothing like that by any means. And so that was all very much new. Um,
Yeah, and I'm also curious just from the I mean, the pure exertion side of it, like, what is your guys' go-to fuel? Are you eating all the time? Like, how do you even it just sounds like so much gear you're packing, so extreme physical output every single day for what you're doing. Like, how do you guys keep yourselves fueled?
We did have a lot of food out there because it's the Arctic and because it's cold. That was a huge fear while we were planning for this was we cannot run out of food. And when you do research on other expeditions that have been there, that's a big thing. People lose food. They drop it into the ocean while crossing those leads, or a a bear gets it, or the foxes get it, or something like that. So we actually had a ton of food out there. Unfortunately, the bulk of our diet was those dehydrated meals,
Mhm.
and I don't think those things should be consumed by any human, and definitely not for 29 consecutive days. And then we continued, honestly, to eat those meals even when we were back in the village that we started in, because food was extremely expensive there. And then for me, I'm celiac, so, like, whatever food they did have was probably breaded. So I was like, "I guess I'll continue to eat my dehydrated salt." Is basically what those were. That was not okay. It sustained us calorie-wise, but when I got back, I was like, "Man," and I really focused on getting the right type of calories in my body, 'cause I could just feel that my body was not okay.
Yeah. I
After
mean, as athletes, I think we know how much nutrition matters, but when you just get so depleted, it's like, "Oh my gosh, there is just so much that nutrition does for your body." So, even just, like, eating the right amount, like, you can just completely jack your metabolism up if you're not giving yourself enough throughout years and years and years, and I think as women, so many times, we are worried about our body image or whatever it is and insecurities we have, and we're just like, "Oh, well, I'll just eat less." And we're actually doing more harm, not only for performance outputs if you're an athlete, but just an everyday woman trying to like have energy to live your life, take care of kids, like you're actually doing more harm because you're down regulating your metabolism, not giving yourself the energy to fuel your body and build muscle, which also burns calories. So it's like we just end up in this death cycle of when you don't have enough of the right good stuff in your body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like the those expeditions and big wall climbing, they're honestly not anything to base your nutritional or health journey on. You should not use those to be like, this is what athletes are using for peak
Yeah.
performance." It's like, no. All of that happens in the in between, in the front country. That's where I can really focus on my fiber is a huge one that you miss out in the field. It's really hard to get
Mm,
any sort of real plant in your body. But while our main focus was honestly just calories, we want to get enough calories every single day. And then for
yeah.
me, I try and get protein and fat in there as much as possible. So eating like a lot of salami and a lot of cheese are ways to do that. So that was like basically the bulk of my diet out there. And I am an endurance athlete, and so I kind of can recognize the pattern now, and for me, it doesn't matter how long the trip is, it's day 3 that is the hardest. I don't know what that is, but on the 3rd day, I'm just like, "Okay, I know that today is gonna feel terrible." And you just think that you're not gonna be able to wake up, you think that your body's completely depleted, and then after that, it's like we adapt, and I swear my body gets stronger or more used to that environment from day 4 on. It's just like, okay, it's like it accepts what's happening. It's like, all right, she's eating dehydrated meals, she's not drinking enough water, electrolytes are off, and this is our new normal.
Our bodies are amazing.
Yeah,
Even
how much
like,
we
I
can
mean,
adapt.
yes, and even, like how quickly your gut can heal or like mend itself with diet changes. I mean, it's within like a week, your gut can be different based off of just what you're eating. It's like our bodies are built to adapt quickly, and they're really amazing if you give it the opportunity.
Yeah, I think again, it's the mind that's gonna slow you down. And so in dealing with that, it's like recognizing, like I said, the patterns of it or just sitting with it and being like, yeah, today is gonna be a really hard day, but it's not gonna be forever. There will be a tomorrow, whether or not I like it. And it's up to me how I'm gonna face that tomorrow.
And I love that you said recognizing those patterns because I think that's really is so much of what growing in life is about. Like, how do you use your mind to overcome the different challenges that we have, emotionally or physically, and recognizing the patterns to help us overcome them. So I'm curious if there's anything else that kind of bubbles up to your mind as a pattern that you've recognized and learned over your career in life that you've seen and then be able to, okay, like now I know, this moving forward about me.
Well, there's definitely a pattern to the way humans socialize. And I've learned
Mm.
that as a group leader, like somebody who leads trips with people, and I love animal watching, and I just think humans are the most complex animals, and so we are fascinating to observe personally, and I love it. Like, sitting in an airport, I'm just like, "I'm at the zoo for humans, this is amazing." But there is definitely a pattern to how groups socialize and establish a hierarchy or like this is how we're gonna coexist together. And I got to see that on the Arctic trip for sure because none of us really knew one another. So
Mm.
there was this sort of storming, norming, reforming. There was this pattern to how we were establishing our team dynamics. And I think I could, because of my experience in leading groups, I could observe those rather than just having them happen to me every single second. I was like, oh, this is what's happening. We are just, we are moving through it as social creatures, and there's a pattern to that.
Yeah. And so what's the storming, norming,
Reforming,
or
it's a
forming? Yeah.
it's sort of the first 3 days of a group coming together. The day 1 is this storming, everybody comes together, their personalities the loudest parts of their personalities are especially loud, and this is myself included. I'm just 'cause I'm aware of it doesn't mean I'm exempt from it. Um, but it's this storming, you come together, all the personalities are just out for better or worse, and everything's just sort of it's a storm, it's flying off the wall, it's going everywhere, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, like, there are some storms that we love, everybody loves sitting and reading a book on a stormy day, so there are good parts to a storm, but personalities are loud on day 1. The norming is day 2, is this, like, okay, we've all seen one another's personalities. We've seen what we're working with. We kind of got to showboat our strengths and our weaknesses came out, just whether or not we liked it. And there's this sort of falling into whatever the team dynamic will be, leader, follower, quiet one, helpful one, selfish one, whatever it's going to be, that starts norming, starts becoming apparent. There's a pattern to this social behavior. And then reforming is like, okay, we're going to restructure this to actually work towards our success. So the person that came in and was really loud and was like, I'm going to be the leader and I'm going to make all of the decisions. Perhaps we're restructuring that as a group because we've consciously or not decided you are not the leader. You will not be making all of the decisions. And so there is a restructuring that happens. And this 3-day pattern happens over and over and over again, no matter how long
Mm.
the trip is. It's very cyclical and will continue to happen because
Mm.
we change too. So those roles will shift. and change.
Interesting. So when you lead big groups, are you observing this, and then how do you manage and lead in those type of situations?
Definitely observing it and loving that observation part of it, and I try and lead from the back. That's my strategy. I Because things have a way of sorting themselves out, so just trying to empower people that are perhaps more capable than they think, but are quieter than that loud one, trying to give the loud one trying to fill the need that that loud one has. There's usually like a, okay, you have a good heart, usually. You want to feel useful, you want to be very helpful, but your actions are just misdirected. So trying to give that perfect person a task or a purpose of like, we need you to navigate this section, and that sort of really makes that person feel empowered. So sort of trying to like silently do these things from the back. And in the Arctic group, my strategy specifically was to say less. I we had 4 extremely capable people who could make any of the decisions that needed to be made out there. And so there was this constant back and forth with every single decision that needed to be made, and I was like, "I don't need to weigh in on half of these. I'm just gonna sit this out." And so once the loud ones were done talking in circles and didn't get anywhere and had sort of exhausted their voices, but yet had not arrived at a decision, then the quieter ones were like, "Oh, okay, here's what I think." And that one sentence would usually be the course of action. So that was very much my strategy of like just trying to trust everybody that I was with, and trying to have grace with everyone for being in an extreme environment, for not knowing one another, and then just being like, I believe in all of us, and no one person needs to come out on top.
Yeah, and that's such good self-awareness of understanding the team dynamics, but then knowing where you can move the needle in the right way to help. I mean, the way that it sounds like your personality is and you played it, it like then works out great. Like you've completed this epic expedition, but because there was self-awareness, and that's one piece that I love, like enneagrams and discs and like anything that exposes people to how can you be more self-aware and understand yourself and how interactions with others with these type of personalities are best had. Like I love all of that stuff as well.
Self-awareness and emotional intelligence are not to be taken for granted, I think, and it should be a constant journey for all of us of honing in those 2 skills, because I think with those 2 skills you can do anything.
Yeah, I really want to have my kids take an Enneagram and be able to teach them how to think about yourself, think about self awareness, like teach them that skill. And so I'm trying to think of ways to do that. And Enneagram just pops up to me as one that I love. And I think it's kind of fun. We've done it with like my own girl group just to like guess who each other's personalities are, where we write, go take the test. So if anyone hasn't done that one, I would highly recommend it. You can find it somewhere for free online, but it's an easy step to like start to get to understand the core of you. And then it will reveal some crazy things that you're just like, "Oh my gosh, that is so me." Like
Yeah.
it's oddly almost like, "How do they know this?" But it's so true. It's crazy.
How did they know this and I didn't know it? That's crazy.
I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then
What
also I think, having practicing compassion and having that grace for people and just being like, nobody's perfect. Everybody is doing their best. Um, and not sort of putting yourself above other people, just being like, this is where I am. So in my hard times in the Arctic with the team dynamics, that's kind of what I went to, like my journal on those harder days teen dynamic wise were filled with, what am I meant to be learning from these people? Why is this conflict coming up for me? What am I supposed to take away from this? Not like, oh, I'm better or that person's worse. Just what can I learn from what's happening? And what
Ooh, I
can I do better? Because that's the only thing I can control.
Ooh, I love that. And I would love that for anyone to journal that every day, not just in a hard situation. I think so often, and I know for me, I turn to journaling when I'm having a hard time as a way to process and work through things. And I'm like, I need to be just doing it all the time. I don't need to, not just through the hard times. Like, this is such a good tool to do every day. I think also the grace and patience with people of not we don't know what other people are going through. I mean, just like the beginning of your story, people didn't know this crazy thing that you've been through. And same with us. We never know someone's background, like why they could have been triggered by something, what they're going through. So a little bit of grace and patience and knowing that there's always more to someone than what we can see or understand.
Yeah, and for me personally, like, not a big thing that I struggle with is not having to prove myself, and I think that kind of comes
Mm.
from coming up in this male-dominated environment where I felt like I constantly had to work, and I did have to work twice as hard for half the amount of respect, and so I sort of got this chip on my shoulder when I was younger and, like, got this thing where I was like, "Alright, I need to prove myself in this environment." And the the Arctic for me was very much like a I'm not it was I've known this about myself, and so it was an opportunity to practice, like, I don't need to prove myself because whoever needs to see me as I am and whoever can see me as I am is going to see me as I am. And whoever isn't, just they're not gonna they're gonna see me. Basically, people are gonna see me however they're gonna see me. I don't know what's going on with them, and I have no control over it, and so I just need to lean into knowing my worth and know that that's good enough for me, and I don't have to prove that to anybody else.
Oh, that's such a good life lesson.
I'm constantly learning it, but yeah, I do think that the male-dominated environment has helped show me that. So I hope I didn't derail our conversation too much of, like, I wanna make sure I gave you lots of adventures and I don't know if people need to know a background on me or if this is all speaking for itself. I need to prove myself, see, I don't know, but
No, this was so awesome. I mean, just like your authenticity in sharing what you've learned through your different struggles. This was such an awesome conversation. And I think so much more than I was even expecting.
Oh, yeah.
So I just love the whole hour. So thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me, I appreciate it. It's fun to find your podcast and to learn about all these awesome women.
And if listeners wanted to learn more about Athena Rock Climbing, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram. Our handle is Athena Rock Climbing, and we do have a website, athenarockclimbing.com too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Kelly.
Thank you, I really appreciate it, it was fun.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Find Your Fuel. If you enjoyed the show and want to support us, please leave a comment or review. And before we go, I have to give you the obligatory medical and legal disclaimer. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. The advice and recommendations we discuss are not intended as medical advice and do not replace the treatment or care of a physician or any other primary healthcare provider. Using the information shared today does not create a doctor-patient relationship, and it should not be used to diagnose or treat any health problem. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your diet, exercise routine, or medications. The use of any information provided is solely at your own risk. So, in a nutshell, let's be smart and remember these stories and conversations are for educational purposes only, to help other women find the fuel to live their best lives. We'll see you in the next episode.